Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back into another edition of the Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and of course, joined in by my prospect experts, Peter Baracchini, Devin Little. We got the whole line back together. We've missed one. We missed Devin the first time and missed Peter the other. I had injury replacement, Logan Horn, come in and replace a great call-up from, I guess, our AHL squad. He filled in really nice. So
he did.
Thanks. Big shout out to him. Logan. Yeah. Thanks again to Logan for coming on the show and providing his expertise for the Red Wings. And of course, our first, what were we doing the first time? It was the rankings for the players to watch from this Central Scouting. So so thanks to Logan again for coming on and having him here, and it was great. So but we got the whole gang back together for this episode, and we are continuing our deep dives into the different NHL organizations, and we're going into the Toronto Maple Leafs. So like I said, we're starting with the teams we cover. So started with the Detroit Red Wings. Now we're on to Peter's Toronto Maple Leafs, and prospect pool admittedly is not as strong as the Detroit Red Wings, quite a bit weaker, but we're not gonna be able to do the breakdown by positions, but we will still go through a lot of their top prospects, and there's quite a few different ones, even though they're they've made the playoffs every year and they don't get high picks, so there's still some intriguing prospects. So but before we get going, of course, this show is brought to you by the Morning Skate, daily newsletter delivered to your inbox Monday to Friday, jam-packed with the best hockey stuff on the planet. Daily dose of news, rumors, history, funnies, quizzes, all that great hockey fun and information brought to you every day of the week, Monday to Friday, from the Hockey Writers. And you'll see a link in the show description, so sign up there, and we got that every morning into your inbox. All right, let's get going here, and with the top prospects of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we're going to start in the AHL with the Toronto Marlies. And I believe they're playing right now, I think. It's Janae, our photographer, is going to get quite a few images for the Marlies, so you'll start probably seeing them on the site. So we'll start with the Marlies, and Peter, we'll start with you. And who do you want to highlight from the Marlies that fans should be watching in the next few years here?
Yeah, I mean, I could go on and say, talk about Nick Abruzzese, Pontus Holmberg, but I'm going to go with a very underrated name. And this is a player that took me by surprise at the rookie tournament. And I'm going to highlight Marshall Rifai, towering defender, 6'1", 190 pounds, was signed as a NCAA free agent, signed to an AHL contract. And what I saw at the rookie tournament was just a guy who doesn't take nothing from nobody. This is a guy who plays a very menacing game, very physical, very in your face, but a very solid defensive game as well. Obviously, you're bound to see some mistakes here and there. He's getting acclimated to the pro level. But from what I've seen with the Marlies right now, what I've even during preseason and training camp with the Maple Leafs, what I saw at the rookie tournament, I came away very impressed, because Maple Leafs lack that kind of like gritty sandpaper in your face type of player. And this is a guy that just loves to like mix it up with the opposition and get in their face, try and, bait them, draw a penalty. And he's a very good skater, great mobility, great hands, great passing. He's got great, defensive separation, defending against the rush, keeping players at the outside. He's got the smarts and the tools. It's just all a matter of putting it together. And I think at some point down the line, 2-3 years from now, remember the name Marshall Rifai, because a lot of other Maple Leaf writers, I know Sammy Turpak has been a big, fan of his over at Dobber Prospects. He's been loving him. And after that rookie tournament, I came away a really big fan of his. So Marshall Rifai, keep an eye out on him, because he could be a very solid two-way / stay-at-home defender that could possibly be an underrated name in the Maple Leaf system.
Well, the Maple Leafs need defense, and they need some guys coming up. I mean, there's a few overseas that, one guy, you probably know who I'm talking about. But yeah, it's great to have guys closer in the AHL, and we'll see if he can do something the next bit here. And like I say, the Maple Leafs need defense. So if some young guys can get going, they won't have to try to trade for him or sign, free agent contracts, which may or may not work out. Right. So,
yeah. And it's also worth noting 13 points in 35 games with Harvard, 3 points in 10 games right now. So he's starting to find his stat sheet quite a bit. So that offensive game is also developing.
There you go. So keep an eye on Rifai for sure. All right, Devin, who do you got your eye on the Marlies? I know Grand Rapids plays them. I think obviously they're playing him right now as we record. So who do you want to kind of highlight from the Marlies system here?
Yeah, Peter mentioned that he could talk about him, and he did not. So I'm going to. I would like to talk about Pontus Holmberg. He's a Swede. Yeah. I love my Swedes. And this is a player who made his NHL debut already, right? With the with the big club. There's a number of reasons why I want to talk about him, not only because he's Swedish, but he's also a late round pick, a 6th round pick going back to 2018. We've covered this multiple times. Love the late round picks that become something.
Yeah.
And this is a player who I think has earned his way up and earned every opportunity that he's gotten to this point in his young career. I think he's a very cerebral, very patient, very responsible player. Really good at making plays, really good at kind of just surveying what options are available to him on the ice. Upside is a little bit limited, but I don't think they're necessarily expecting him to be, a first line caliber talent. They just kind of, you're hoping he becomes just a useful piece, and that's certainly what it looks like. Exactly. Yeah. And that's what he's looking like right now. I think that, with the Marlies, 4 points in 8 games, and he's showing that he can play. He's adaptable. He's speaking of being a reliable piece, he's adaptable. He can play down the middle. He can play on the wing, and he's not going to necessarily hurt you one way or the other. So I think as, the Maple Leafs maybe move some guys out, move some guys in, I think Holmberg has already shown that he's very much on the Maple Leafs radar as a guy to, be potentially part of the picture here. I'm looking forward to seeing if he can really stamp that for himself. I can't think of the right way to put it, but really impressed with him. Really impressed with him since he showed up in the Marlies late last season. He had 4 points in 6 games, and he just plays a good game. I think he plays a really mature game for his age, and I think that as long as he continues on the trajectory he's on, he's going to be a name that more and more people will know beyond just the prospects guys.
Yeah, well, again, late round picks, we all love him here on the show, and he's another guy, and that's where, again, the teams that are contenders every year, they need these late round picks to start to hit, because they never get the high end guys. I mean, not a lot of the time, unless they trade for a pick that's higher. But yeah, so Holmberg's been on a guy that's been on the radar for a bit, and now he's in the AHL. And we'll see how he does all throughout his first full season in the minors. So it's gonna be fun to see if he can even get some more games in the NHL as well. Okay, well, let's move away from the Marlies and get into the North America side and talk about NCAA, USHL, and here's where we're going to talk maybe talk about Matthew Knies. So Peter, I'll keep going with Devin here. Devin, who do you have from the North America, the rest of the continent here?
Well, you set it up. I will knock it down. I will talk about Matthew Knies. Don't have to twist my arm. I'll do it.
I would have talked about him too, just saying.
I mean, there's plenty to talk about, right? He's a darn good prospect. This is a player who, if you go back to episodes from our previous season of Prospects Corner, his name gets brought up a lot because he really kind of I don't want to say he showed up because he's been out there, he's showed up before, but he really kind of announced himself as like a legitimate, oh man, this guy's like, he could be a difference maker for Toronto. And he hasn't slowed down. He's in his sophomore year with the University of Minnesota, 11 points in 12 games. So he's basically on the point per game pace he had last season with the Golden Gophers. And he's a player that he's a little tenacious player who likes to do a little bit of everything. I think I talked about how Carter Mazur is a player that on last week's episode, he's the type of player that fans gravitate to because he isn't afraid to make the hard plays as well as the soft plays. I think Matthew Knies is very much the same type of player. He'll make the hard plays, he'll make the soft plays, and he'll make his line better because of it. It's going to be interesting. I think he's got a very bright future ahead of him. I think that goes without saying, but I also think that he's in a system with a team, with an organization that could use young talent. We've talked about that. You've already mentioned it, but also it's a team that they're pushing for a cup this year. And when you're pushing for cups, eventually you got to add to it. And I think that if you're talking about making a blockbuster move, Matthew Knies is the type of player that is going to be at least mentioned in these type of deals. So I'm not saying they should trade him. In fact, I'm saying the exact opposite. I think he's going to be a darn good player, and I think that he's the type of player that Toronto should hold on to. But it's going to be interesting. I think that after this season, as long as it continues to go well for him, I would not be surprised if he signs a contract and goes pro. And I'm excited to see what he does when he goes to another level, because so far in the early going in his collegiate career, he's been nothing but fantastic. So I think he's obviously it's November, but I think early going here, he's ready for the next challenge. So eager to see whether or not that comes towards the end of this season.
Yeah, well, 11 points in 12 games, that's not bad to start the year. Tied with another guy that I don't know, Peter, another guy that's Ryan Torberg is 11 points in 11 games. So he's right there with him. So Peter, over to you. Who do you have from the rest of North America here that you want to kind of highlight from the Maple Leafs?
This is going to be tough because obviously the Maple Leafs don't have one or like a massive amount of prospects in one league. You have players in the WHL, you have some in the OHL, USHL right now. I know Devin talked about Nick Moldenhauer last time we talked. I'm not going to talk about Nick Moldenhauer because he is pretty good, and Devin had a really spot on talk about him last time. But I am going to say Fraser Minten. I'm going to go not necessarily off the board, but the second round pick that the Maple Leafs got from the Chicago Blackhawks because of that Peter Mrazek trade to unload that contract is looking very well right now. Obviously, he missed some time because he did deal with an injury. 11 points in 7 games. Obviously, it's not at the 21 in 10 like Logan Stankoven, but the Maple Leafs wanted him to have, a very solid, repeat performance of last season where he had 55 points in 67 games. 11-7 is pretty good. On pace projection right now, according to the Elite Prospects, is 96 in 61 games. So even if he doesn't hit that mark, if he's able to surpass that point total from last season, it's going to be a big step considering he is that two-way, smart, physical, strong. He's everything that, again, talked about this with Marshall Rifai on defense. He's everything that the Maple Leafs want and sort of that second, third line centerman that can be an impactful, have the skill set, have the shot, have the smarts and awareness. And that was the big thing that, I took away from him at the NHL draft when I was talking or when he was doing that media scrum. He talked about his smarts and his vision and awareness and how that was the main thing that the Maple Leafs wanted from him. And it's looking like a very big factor early on. Again, has the size, can play physical. He could be mean. He could be offensive. He could be smart defensively. He can do it all. And if he's able to continue his progression this season as, a go-to player for the Kamloops Blazers, look out, because I think it's going to be a really good pick for the Maple Leafs and may have been off the board, but clearly the Maple Leafs had him in sights.
For sure. Fraser Minten is one of those guys I really liked. I've said this on the show before too. And another Kamloops Blazers. They've got a pretty good team up there. And that's why I knew him, because I'm following Stankoven quite a bit, and and Minten has been one of their better players as well. So, the Blazers are, we've talked about it. They could be, they're hosting the Memorial Cup this year, so they have a really good chance of being there and potentially winning it, especially with Minten and Stankoven leading the way there. Well, I'm going to talk a bit about Ryan Torberg. I'm not going to go too much, because I know, Peter, you mentioned him, I believe, a couple episodes ago. So if you want to know more about him, definitely check that out. He's got 7 goals and 4 assists, 11 points in 11 games, like I alluded to before, and playing for the University of Connecticut. So they're a pretty good team as well this year. They got quite a few really good prospects we've talked about on this show. And keep an eye on Torberg as well throughout this season, because he's off to a great start in the NCAA too. And again, I believe he was a later round pick too. So, and I just learned how to say his name. So 7th round pick, another really late pick, and looking like a pretty good player early on into his third year with Connecticut too. So last year, 14 goals, already halfway there this year. So he's off to a great start as well. All right, well, let's go overseas. And this is another team that has a lot of prospects overseas. And Detroit, of course, obviously they're always the ones overseas, but the Maple Leafs have a few as well. So Peter, what do you want to kind of highlight from across the pond?
Yeah, again, I could spotlight Topi Niemela, Roni Hirvonen, but I'm going to go with, I know I've talked about him before, but I'm starting to see a little bit of progression with his point production overall, and that's Nikita Grebyonkin, with Amur Khabarovsk in the KHL right now. 5 points in 8 games. And obviously, when you're a young player and you're moving your ways up the rankings, obviously it's tough to gain minutes in the KHL. And lucky for Grebyonkin right now, he's starting to get those opportunities, as I just mentioned, his point totals right now. So when you give him the opportunity, he's probably going to be successful. He was an overager in the draft, drafted in the 5th round by the Maple Leafs, but he has the work ethic, hands, and speed that just makes him unbelievable and very hard to contain. Because in his draft year on that MHL squad with Danila Yurov, obviously he was bouncing up and down with the KHL. And when he was given given the minutes, he excelled. Grebyonkin had 64 points in 58 games. He's just a very elusive and very slick playmaker, but has the size, speed, and physicality. And I believe there was a clip online where he dropped the gloves and he just went to town on his opponent and just absolutely pummeled him. So he can fight. And if you're seeing a trend right now, physicality with the Maple Leafs is a big factor right now. So, the fact that he's got that physical game, he's got the offense. I think the Maple Leafs, one of their scouts even described him as machine-like. And it's very tough to find those kind of players. And if you find them late in the draft and he has value, chances are it's going to end up going well. And he's got the size and speed. So, when you see a 6'2" playmaking player or playmaking winger that can, be in your face as well, it's not going to be fun. And the fact that he can be a factor on both sides of the puck, it's going to be a challenge for, the opposition, no doubt.
Yeah, he's been a guy that I've noticed over the last couple seasons too. So keep an eye on Grebyonkin. He's going to be fun if he gets over here at some point in the AHL at first. So it's not always guaranteed with guys like that. So hopefully he is over here sooner rather than later. All right, Devin, who do you have from overseas that you want to highlight for the Maple Leafs?
Well, once again, Peter said he could mention him, and he did not, so I'm going to do it. Roni Hirvonen is who I want to talk about. Finnish little engine that could, basically, right? He's undersized, but he does not play like it. He's not afraid to go to the tough areas of the ice. He goes to the net. He's actually pretty good in front of the net, if I do say so myself. And he's got a lethal shot for a guy who's 5'9". He's got a lot of power behind it. By that is what I mean by that. And this is a player who I think he plays. I I don't know. It basically, long story short, it doesn't surprise me that he's Finnish because he plays a very quiet, but not like quiet game. Like he's a player that I think you can rely on. And I think, you know, if he comes over to North America, he won't have like a huge adjustment period in terms of like the expectations of what it takes to play professional hockey over here, because he already plays a pretty mature game, you know, over there. I think that the only thing that, you know, there is cause for concern with is just that old cliche of he's small, so is he going to get thrown around too much? But like I said, he's a very tenacious player, and he puts himself in positions to where he is going to get rocked, and I think that's his game. I think that you know, I don't think that's a bad thing per se. I think that for him to have success as a Maple Leaf in the future, he's gonna be a player who wants to go to the net. He's gonna be a player who wants to you know, battle for pucks and get pucks on net and get pucks to playmakers. I don't think he's going to be like an all-star forward. I really don't, but I think he's going to be a player that a lot of people like because he plays the game the right way and he has enough traits to where he's going to make you go wow at least once or twice in a game, because it's like this, like I say, it's a little engine that could, and he's also, and this is, I've said this before, I put a lot of stock in this. He's a captain. At least he's been a captain before. And when you wear letters, I think that speaks volumes about you. So not only does he play the right way, it seems like he behaves the right way. And I think that I don't know, he could very well be a very important piece for the Maple Leafs in the near future. So if you're not looking out for this kid, I think you should be, because he's got plenty of talent. And I think that as long as he can adapt to North America when he does come over, he's gonna be fine.
Well, like you said, he, you know, it's no surprise he's Finnish the way he works. I mean, that's just it's in every Finn's DNA. They're all hard workers. They're all really hard on. They just play a system really well, and that's what's good about the Finns. Whenever, it doesn't matter who it is. If you look at a Finnish player, they have those traits. So. For me, and this is probably maybe an obvious thing, if you've read any of my articles, whenever I target the Maple Leafs as a trade partner for the Canucks, I always have this guy involved. I actually wrote an article last season about any JT Miller trade has to have this guy in it. So that is Topi Niemela, and arguably their top defensive prospect, and he is a right-hand shot. What the Canucks need, and but there's a reason why he is this. And you know, he was one of the best defensemen in the World Juniors not that long ago, and he's one just built for the modern NHL. Mobile, smart, again, right-hand shot, which is very rare to have, especially with the skill set that he has. Another Finnish player. So, I mean, he's got all that hardworking aspect of himself, and not a high draft pick, but he sure plays like one. He plays like a first rounder, in my opinion. But they got him, I believe they got him in the third round.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a third round pick, and he's performing like, you know, last season, I believe, what did he win? Like best defenseman in the Finnish league there. He's just, and that's why anytime, and I did another one, if the Maple Leafs want Bo Horvat at any point, Niemela has to be part of that as well. I also mentioned Hirvonen. Here's another one. But there's reasons why I want them on the team I cover, because they're high-end prospects. And even though they were, again, not drafted high, they are they're going to be really good NHL players. And I think that's why the Maple Leafs haven't traded Niemela. I think that's a big reason why. I don't think they're going to, as much as I want them to. I think that he's going to be a big part of that defense that they really need right now.
The possibility that he could come over when the season is over, because he did sign his ELC, but also trading down with the Ottawa Senators, that they used the Maple Leafs pick to take Tyler Clevin for Hirvonen and Niemela, looking pretty good for the Maple Leafs.
Looking really good, actually, the way he's been playing. Again, not overly big. I mean, 5'11". Not small, but he is a great, again, not just mobile, he's a great two-way defenseman too, which is, He's got 5 points in 20 games, not blowing the doors off, I guess, right now, but playing for Karpat in the Liga, just like he did in the last couple seasons, had 10 goals, 32 points last season. And I just want to get my facts straight. He did win, World Juniors best defenseman last, not this past World Juniors, but the one before that.
Previous.
So he's got a lot of traits that all good NHL defensemen that are in this era need. And I think he's going to be really good for the Maple Leafs, because I don't think he's going to go to any other team, unfortunately. All right. Well, that's our overseas section. And, there's quite a few that we didn't talk about. Nick Ambrosese, like we mentioned him a bit. I realized I didn't say anyone for the AHL, so that's my guy. Ambrosese. So I forgot. I just went right to the North. I didn't even say who I wanted. But yeah, Ambrosese is a guy we've talked about on this show before as well. And, he's one of those hardworking utility players that's going to be, a guy that you're going to need in the playoffs, I think, at one point. And he's another guy to keep an eye on as well. A lot of guys in the AHL, actually. Ryan Steve's another one. Keep an eye on him as well. But yeah, the Marlies actually have quite a few interesting prospects down there. So keep an eye on the Marlies as it goes, because I think the Maple Leafs are going to probably need a few of them. Again, injuries happen, and they do have got a lot of depth NHL players, but the Marlies are going to be in play eventually here, especially the salary cap. You're going to need guys to come in under low contracts. All right, well, let's move on to the goaltenders. And the Maple Leafs don't have huge, big name goaltenders like some other teams do, but they got some guys that are coming up. One that's I believe he's still up in the NHL right now as the backup.
Yes.
Right. So Peter, we'll start with you. Who do you want to talk about from the goaltending side?
Yeah, so I'm going to highlight two goaltenders that were once teammates, but are now, going in different directions right now, but, they're still going up in terms of their stock right now. So Artur Akhtyamov and Vyacheslav Peksa are both in the VHL right now, and both are playing very well. Peksa's 10-7-1 with a .921 save percentage and a .228 goals against average. Akhtyamov is 11-5-1 with a .938 save percentage and a .177 goals against average. So I'm just going to beg the question right now: what do Ilya Sorokin on the New York Islanders and Igor Shesterkin on the New York Rangers have in common? They are both the mid-round picks, and the Maple Leafs are trying to bet on mid to late round picks, trying to get some goaltenders that are flying under the radar. Granted, they were more notable at the time in their drafts, but the fact that they've got two underrated names right now playing well, and we know how weak the goaltending situation is for the Maple Leafs right now. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they're starting to, get some positive signs from their prospects overseas, hopefully at some point they could come on over and develop more in North America. So, because we're seeing right now how the Maple Leafs are bleeding for the goaltending situation right now. Both of their 1A, 1Bs are out in Samsonov and Murray. You're relying on Eric Kallgren quite a bit. Petruzzelli is up, but you have to wonder, when are some of these other players going to start to come and make the transition over? Because they're playing pretty well, or lights out hockey in the crease right now, because they both Peksa is more stable, or he's not as jumpy or overly aggressive as Akhtyamov is, but both are very sound. They can get in good positioning. They both track the puck very well, and that's what the Maple Leafs need right now. They're seeing positive signs with their goaltending. So for me to combine the two right there, it was hard to pick just one, because they're both having really great seasons right now.
Yeah, well, like you said, the Maple Leafs need goaltending, so it'd be great to have a young guy come up and do something, and not having to rely on free agents that you don't know if they're going to hit or not. And that's still a question mark if either Samsonov or Murray is the answer right now. All right, Devin, who do you want to talk about from the goaltending side? I have a feeling it's a guy that he kind of mentioned there.
It's the theme of this is Peter just kind of sets it up and I knock it down.
Teamwork.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of cheating, not really though, because this is a guy who was drafted by the Red Wings. So I'm I've been
There you
exposed
go.
to him for a while. That is Keith Petruzzelli, the current backup for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And good on him. He earned himself an NHL contract with the Maple Leafs this year, and partially because of all the injury issues, like what Peter was talking about. But he also, I think, he earned it on his own merits as well. He's 6-0 to start the season with the Marlies. Solid stats across the board, .922 save percentage. He's just been stopping pucks, so that's what you need from goalies, right? And he's a big dude. He's 6'5", little lanky. But I think that he's a young kid. Hit the gym a few more times for a few more years, and he'll fill out. He was drafted in that 2017 draft. He was a third round pick. Yep, third round pick from the Red Wings, like I said. And that 2017 draft, that was the year the Red Wings drafted Michael Rasmussen. They got Gus Lindstrom. Those are both guys that are on their team right now. But I remember at the time, Petruzzelli was who really intrigued me because I just saw a lot of potential there. He was a big dude, and he played a really fun style of goaltending. He obviously didn't end up signing with the Red Wings, ended up in a pretty good place, across the Ambassador Bridge, I'd say. He's a player, he's a goalie who relies on his size. And when you're 6'5", I would rely on my size too. But I think the kind of the next step in his development is how to combine his God-given gifts with technique and what goalie coaches will teach him. I think he's got a really, really solid foundation. That is why he got himself an NHL contract. And I think that at the very, very least, at least in my mind, he has the goods to become like an elite AHL goaltender that, is potentially like kind of like one of those fringe goalies who kind of like come up like a really strong third goalie for an NHL team, kind of like a Kelvin Pickard. But I also wouldn't write off the possibility that he could be an NHL goalie. Goalies take time. He's got, like I said, the God-given gifts to be a NHL goaltender. It's just a matter of how high he can take his game and how much he can kind of hone in on what his goalie coaches will teach him. Like I said off the top here, kudos to him for earning that contract. I do think he earned it. And I'm glad he is not in goal for the Marlies tonight because I want my Griffins to win. And I don't know that they would if Petruzzelli was in goal.
Yeah, well, goalies take a bit to develop. You don't know. I mean, all of a sudden, a guy that you didn't see, and all of a sudden he's an NHL backup or NHL starter. I mean, that happens. Look at Binnington. I mean, he was in the AHL for quite a while, and then all of a sudden, it's just like he came out of nowhere, and he's a starter, and he's still a starter. So, I mean, Blues aren't doing very well right now, but that's goalies take a bit of time. You need to be patient with them. So don't write them off just because they have a couple seasons where they're not looking very good. And even in the NHL, like even if you see them don't do very well for a season or two, they may still be developing. So keep that in mind whenever you're watching goaltenders. That's what I'm saying. Okay, well, before we move on to a few final questions and our prospects of the week returning this week, remind you, this show is brought to you by Sports Fans Side Hustle. New digital course teaches passionate sports fans how to make lucrative income off of their love of the game. Get off the sidelines into the game with a course that will teach you more than 14 different and easy to start methods any sports fan can use to make a steady part-time or full-time income. All you need is the internet, computer, passion for sports, and a few hours a week. Go to sportsidehustle.com, the absolutely free startup guide that will explain 4 keys to unlocking this income opportunity. Again, that's sportsidehustle.com, and get started today. All right, well, let's move on to one question. We're going to ask this for every prospect pool here. And Peter, you're probably the best equipped to answer this. What do you think about this system right now? What is the weakness that they should be focusing on in future drafts?
Obviously, depending if they keep that first round pick, you're going to get an elite level player if they get a first round, or if they keep that, you're getting a first round talent no matter what if they hang on to that. There's a site called My NHL Draft, and they have the Maple Leafs taking Matthew Wood, which wouldn't be a really bad selection. 13th overall because of like the updated standings. It hasn't been updated yet, but you know where I'm going with that. But obviously you can look at best player available. That's what they've done the whole entire time. But I think right now you need to address, defense and goaltending, specifically goaltending too. And, obviously this draft isn't strong on defensemen aside from Cameron Allen, Mikhail Gilyaev. You have some late end first round talent, but not where, the Maple Leafs are quote unquote currently right now, but that's subject to change because of the standings. If also the other big question is goaltending too. We talked about how important that is and how, you have good names coming up in the system right now, but they don't have enough depth because there's still a lot of uncertainty right now. If they're able to draft, I'm not going to say Michael Hrabal because he's looking more like a first rounder by the minute, but maybe a Carson Bjarnason in the second round, if they get a second round pick, if they take a Scott Ratzlaff. Both goaltenders are looking pretty great or pretty strong in the WHL this season right now. So, I think that they have many options. Obviously, best player available, defense priority. I think they got enough forward depth that they can maybe try and say, hey, you know what? We don't need a forward this time around unless it's the best player available. Then you have no choice but to. But if considering that they don't have a second round pick, if they're able to get one, or if a goaltender's there in the third round that really stands out, so be it, take it. But they got a lot of different options. So best player available, defense, goaltending. I think everything's on the table for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah. Again, like the best player available is always the best way. It's the later rounds you can start maybe addressing needs. A bit. So, but yeah, goaltending definitely is one they got to kind of maybe add some more talent to. So Devin, do you agree with that? For goaltending is their priority, and of course defense as well.
It's interesting because I think gut instinct tells me goalie, right? But I also think that they have guys there who could be the long-term answer. I know I even to this day really like that Samsonov pickup for them. And he's young enough to where he could be the guy for like the next 8 years and they don't have to worry about it. But, while he's on the mend and while there are still questions, there will still be questions. I just talked about Petruzzelli. Maybe he becomes something. But until there are answers, you have to find answers. So I think that to kind of get to the point here, I almost wouldn't be surprised, or I wouldn't be shocked, or if I was Kyle Dubas, I would almost if they enter the draft and they still have that first round pick, I would explore the possibility of trading back and adding additional picks. Because I think that I think what the Maple Leafs need more than anything else is they just need more prospects. They need more guys who could become something. Matthew Knies wasn't a first round pick, right? And he's the cream of the crop. So you can find these guys, especially in a draft that's as deep as this one. Like I think unless you're going to get unless you're picking 16th and you're going to get like an all-star talent, so hold on to the pick, I would try to trade back and add more picks, and instead of getting one all-star, maybe get two elite type of guys. Try to kill two birds with one stone. So what do I think they need? I just think they need more quality prospects because they do have guys for sure, but once you get past the top names, it thins out pretty quickly. And, Matt, you said it at one point already, they're going to need to get good guys on entry-level contracts because Austin Matthews is going to get paid. And, they're going to have to be able to fill out the roster somehow.
Again, this is another team that doesn't have a ton of cap space. So, you're going to need some guys to start coming up that are not getting paid a lot. So. But I agree. I think the same thing. They just need some more picks and some more prospects. Just keep filling the cupboard because you can. And I say this a lot. You do the best player available. You keep adding. You can trade from strengths to address weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And a lot of teams have done this. They do it. All of a sudden, they're like, why are they able to do it? Because they have guys they can trade and not kill their prospect pool by doing it. So. Yeah, and but again, contending teams, it's harder to do because you don't get those high picks to do that. So, all right. Well, our final question, and we've gotten lucky in the first two. There's been someone that's written a prospect rankings at the beginning of the season. So Alex did this one going into the season, did a top 10. And it's always great to look back on these, even if it's early on in the season, if this should change. So Peter, we'll start with you. What do you think about this list? Is it still accurate to how it is right now, or would you move some guys around?
I'd probably still keep the same names, but maybe adjust some of them. Like maybe I'd probably bump Alex Steves up. He has him at 8, Abruzzese 7, but maybe I bump up Steves just a little bit more. I don't know. I've just been a very big fan of Alex Steves' game overall, because he's that gritty in your face. Again, he's got the speed and skill to be an offensive driven player, but also the mindset to be very sound and responsible. So I think he has more of an opportunity to make the roster more than Abruzzese does, because he's that kind of workhorse type player, and the Maple Leafs need more of those in skill. And that's nothing against Abruzzese, but I think Alex Steves is more a player that could get called up if he continues to have the success that he's having this season as well, and be a factor in a third line, fourth line role, because he's definitely in your face and aggressive in that aspect. So there's one thing I'd probably just change Abruzzese and Steves, but nothing major, because all the top names are there for me.
There you go. Again, it may change mid-season. I mean, again, this is very early. He wrote this, I'm just going to say, I believe it was in July. So just after the draft. All right. Well, Devin, do you think anything should change from this list right now? Would you move anyone around?
Yeah, I'm going to commend Alex first and foremost, because I think this list is really solid.
Yeah.
And I also think that I just kind of mostly agree with Peter. I think doing this show with Peter has made me an Alex Steves fan. So
there you go.
So yeah,
you're welcome.
You're
welcome.
I'd probably move him up too. I would love to kind of hear a debate about Topi Niemela versus Nick Robertson, but obviously Nick Robertson's on the roster right now. It's you know, you probably veer towards Robertson, but I know I really like Niemela, and I think he's got a really bright future ahead of him. But all in all, I think you're splitting hairs if you're you know, trying to move guys around. I think it's a really solid list. Good job, Alex.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, Robertson's going to be graduated from this list pretty soon. So, you know, that 25 game mark is the one, and he's closing in. So the next version of this list probably won't have him on it. So I think Niemela moves up to 2 personally after this. So we'll see if that's the case, Alex. We'll see. All right. Well, that brings us to an end of another deep dive. Again, we didn't talk about everyone, because like I said, it would take more than what we have. We'd be doing 2 hours probably. Maybe not for the Maple Leafs, because they're not as deep as some other teams, but we mentioned a lot of the bigger names, and but check out that rankings list by Alex if you want more details on their top 10, and because he does a great job of going through them all, even though the stats are obviously not up to date because there's been a few games played, but the details are the same. So check that out until he gets out with a new one, which is probably gonna be mid-season, I believe, is when he usually does. Most rankings lists get that treatment. So keep an eye out. All right. Well, let's get to our prospects of the week, returning from a week hiatus, because that Detroit Red Wings episode was quite long. So we'll get to our prospects of the week now. And Devin, we'll start with you. Who do you want to highlight for prospect of the week?
I am going to take the opportunity to highlight a player who I know, I assume you both agree on this one. I still can't believe he fell to the second round in that 2021 draft. I'm going to talk about Francesco Pinelli, a LA Kings prospect who I think got an absolute steal with this guy. He is a center. He's an offensive guy. He's the type of player that, to put it simply, you could show highlights of his to like somebody you're trying to get into hockey, and they will get into hockey because he plays a really fun game. And I think he's, again, like I said, he's based on skill alone. I cannot believe he fell in the second round. I remember writing up candidates for the Red Wings' first round pick in that 2021 draft. And Pinelli was a guy I was very much like, this is who they should pick they end up picking Kosa, so they addressed a big need of theirs. But holy cow, I think teams are going to be kicking themselves for letting him slip to the second round. This is a player who I think one of the reasons why he fell is because he, at least in his draft season, he didn't play a complete game. I mean, that's kind of, I've said this plenty of times, but that's kind of expected of 17, 18-year-old kids. They aren't Patrice Bergeron right off the hop. They have, inefficiencies, especially in their own zone. And I think Pinelli definitely fit the bill. But the reason why you draft him isn't because of what he can't do. It's because of what he can do.
Yeah.
And what he can do is create plays and make these exciting things happen in the offensive zone. I think that as he gets stronger, as he develops that two-way game, and I know that's been a point of focus for him, is developing that two-way game. I think the sky's the limit. I don't think he's going to be like a top tier or whatever player, but I think he's going to be a damn good player.
Yeah.
Talking maybe like a second line center who, just makes things happen and, whatever. I've liked what I've seen out of him to start this season. He's got 17 points in 13 games with the Kitchener Rangers, wearing a C. I've already said what my thoughts on players who wear letters. And I'm excited to see what this kid can do. I think I'm excited to see what he does once he joins, once he joins the LA Kings, whether it's the AHL, the NHL, because like I said, I think they got a steal. And there's a reason why the LA Kings, at least the past few years, have had like what was considered the best prospect pool, because they were getting guys like Francesco Pinelli in the second round. So yeah, they've already got Quentin Byfield, Andre Kopitar, Gabriel Velarde. Well, Francesco Pinelli is coming up too, so look out for the LA Kings. Good lord.
Yeah. Yeah, they got definitely a steal with Pinelli. I was really surprised he dropped out of the first round in that draft. So, but he's showing off that he should have been a first round pick. Right, Peter, who do you want to highlight as a prospect of the week? I know you wrote an article on him not that long ago.
Yeah, let's face it, it was only going to be a matter of time before I gave him a prospect of the week, and that is none other than Connor Bedard. Wow. like just this season alone is just wow. Like, what else can you say about him? Everything he does is exceptional. It's elite. And I like you said, Matt, I wrote something on him because draft content, we want to highlight, a very elite level player, superstar, generational talent. And what he's doing right now in his draft year is absolutely exceptional. And a little shout out, because he and Fraser Minten were teammates in their West Van Academy days. So there you go, kind of playing to both Fraser Minten right there and Connor Bedard. But we're talking about Bedard right now. And going back, like in the last week alone, he has 10 points in 3 games. He's had 2 5-point games. October 30th and November 9th were those last 5-point games. He's up to 4 games with 10 shots or more. He's on pace for 147 points. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal what he's doing in his draft year. Like, this is a legitimate opportunity for him to surpass Connor McDavid's draft year total of 120 points. And we know how elite and insane Connor McDavid is right now.
Yeah.
But even looking at his, clips of everything from, that insane give and go play with Mason McTavish to the absolute dangle at the blue line, and then the between the legs shot in tight on the goaltender. What absolutely amazes me, and again, it's his shot. It's very underrated, and everyone's going to talk about his playmaking, but his shot is NHL caliber. We're talking about Ovechkin, Matthews-esque right now, because he has that same curl and drag technique like Matthews. And one of the clips was, he's on the wall. There's a defender in front of him. There's traffic in front of the net. He gets the shot through the defender's legs, and he gets it, on the short side of the post. And we're talking like millimeters, barely anything, where in actuality that could hit the crossbar, it could go wide. No, it goes in the net, because everything that Connor Bedard shoots, every single time you think he's at an impossible angle or like no way of getting through because of traffic, it gets through. his timing, his accuracy, everything is just phenomenal with his shot and release. And you know what? But let's face it, I'll probably say Connor Bedard next week if he has another 5-point game or like multiple 3-4 games where he's got 4 points or whatever, because let's face it, and I'm surprised it took me this long to not say or to pick Connor Bedard, because there are already other prospects that we're highlighting, but I wanted to save it for a perfect time, and this is a perfect time to highlight Connor Bedard.
Yeah, there's a reason why a lot of teams like the Canucks are not doing very well right now. Everyone's saying
they're doing good against the Leafs.
Maybe just burn this year. And yeah, they're leading right now. Horvat's got another goal. Look out, Connor McDavid. Horvat's coming for you. 2 goals back. But yeah, it's, Bedard's insane. And any team that's getting him, whoever it is getting a generational talent. And we're going to see another Connor tearing up the scoring charts pretty soon. Soon. Looking out for him for sure. All right. Well, my prospect of the week is a guy that was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks in the first round list past draft, and that's Kevin Korchinski. He's another guy that's just insane. Having a really good season. Again, another Seattle Thunderbird. This team is just racking up the points, I don't know if I have to check it again, but I don't know if they're still leading the whole league in wins, but they got quite the talent, and Korchinski is just one of them. One of the guys that are leading that defense and that team. So keep an eye on Korchinski as well, because there's a reason why the Blackhawks traded and got picks to get this guy, and he's showing off why he's going to be a big part of the Blackhawks in the future, because I think he's going to end up being that top pairing guy that Duncan Keith, left, and no one's really filled that in. Look at Seth Jones, but yeah, I think Korchinski's getting there, and he's already showing that he was worthy of that high pick that a lot of people, I believe he was set to go in the mid first round, not in the first top 10, right? So there's a reason why the Blackhawks wanted him, and he's showing why right now. All right, that's another episode of the Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Devin, for joining in again. And, we'll keep doing these deep dives until we get to more of our draft coverage and our World Juniors. I believe, the World Juniors will be first. So we'll do our deep dives until then. And so look out next week for the Vancouver Canucks. We're going to go through that team, and they're not doing very well on the pro side right now, but they got some prospects that not a deep pool, but they got some intriguing ones that are coming up that hopefully will hit and continue this potentially could be a rebuild very soon. So we will see what happens there, and check out all of our prospect coverage at thehockeywriters.com. Peter's got that Connor Bedard piece out. Check that out. And there's gonna be a lot more draft coverage coming out. There's a Leo Carlson feature coming up. One of our newer writers he writes over at THW Prospects as well. There's a Leo Carlson feature coming, so keep an eye out for that as well. And check out the Morning Skate newsletter, sportsidehustle.com as too. And from Peter, Devin, host Matthew Zator, this has been another episode of the Prospect Corner. We will see you next time.